This is officially the session that marks 1 year of playing Subspace D&D. 1 year ago, you guys started back at the old mansion of combat, where you met some interesting faces, encountered some people you will see again at some point in time, and the adventure just kind of began to spindle into existence. First, I'd like to talk about just our characters and like how they've changed, their thoughts, what they've gone through, your opinions on the things they've gone through, just overall kind of a synopsis of your character as well. And then once that's done for all of us, we're going to pull up a video, and it's going to be our original synopsis we gave for all of our characters in episode 1. So I'm pretty excited for that. But, I'll start. So O'Flanagan, he's been through a lot at this point. He started the adventure believing he was one of the last of his kind, that they were all extinct. He believed his brother was dead, that he found out he wasn't just recently. He was also revealed to him that, the Aarakocra were responsible for wiping out the ancient dragon long ago. That King Kaz fabricated a false history according to Zekrom. That's news to him as well. And he is, up to this point, he's gone through a lot of heartache and a lot of emotional turmoil. He almost died, and he was resurrected by Bahamut when Bahamut hatched and was active as Zekrom's village during the big-scale combat you guys had. O'Flanagan over time has become more and more of a pacifist when it comes to combat. In the beginning, he was not very hesitant to throw hands with somebody else next to him if they were giving him a bad look. But as time has gone on and things have changed, he's become a lot less eager to fight, especially in terms of just murder. He doesn't like homicide. He doesn't like anything in those relations. He believes that he doesn't have the right to take life or to justify when it should be taken, unless it is him or his allies or them. He's kind of gone from being a loner to more of a, part of the group, part of the team. And yeah, I think that's the most on O'Flanagan. Who wants to go next?
I can go next for Miss Orbweeb.
Orbweeb!
Orbweeb, she has been through so much. And I think the biggest thing she's been through has been friendship. Aww. Now that sounds a little crazy, I know, because she's been through far worse things. But I think with Orbweeb, she has never really had, humanoid friends. And the biggest thing I think she's had to go through is learning how to have friendship and have people that you care about and understand that death is a natural part of life, and so is defense. And I think through all that, she's had to change a lot about herself. Mostly when it does come to death and gore and harm, especially to other creatures. At the beginning, she was pretty dang afraid of that and pretty uncomfortable with it. But over time, I think we've all noticed that she's gotten a little bit more gung-ho when it comes to having to defend her party mates. And that's been a bit of a challenge. And we've run into that, with the spiders and countless other animals that we've encountered that I've tried to talk to and couldn't.
To note on too, in the first episode, Orweeb was more spacious and childlike. Yeah. And in the most recent episodes, Orweeb's been very just hostile, not afraid to tell someone to shut the hell up. That's been an interesting climb.
It has, yeah. She's had to change a lot about herself, and I think she's had to grow up. And she was kind of forced into that, especially with the responsibility of the dragon egg, and also the responsibility of trying to keep her and herself and her friends alive.
Yeah, 100%. is there anything that or Weeb has gone through in particular that has affected her consciousness on a deeper level, like any major events that changed her?
I think the biggest one that's changed her so far is actually when O'Flanagan died. Because that one, it was pretty much directly her fault. And she knew that. And especially after him sacrificing himself and like himself for her when we were fighting the
Dragonborn?
Cult of Vecna guy.
Oh, the Cold Vecna.
Avatar of Greed.
Yes, him. Greed
Yeah.
guy. Yeah, so when we were fighting him and he had to fly up in the air and try to save her, and thankfully it worked and no one died from that, but especially after the arena situation, that felt like directly her fault. And
I feel like that whole circumstance too was like the eye opener for Orbweeb, where she had like the most of a turn in her personality. Because you're right.
Yeah.
I feel
after
like
that, she was like, I can't be like the goody two shoes. I'm gonna save everyone and everything.
Exactly.
Anymore.
And I feel like Orbweeb trying to like,
possible.
yeah, and Orbweeb trying to, because the events leading up to that were the Dragonborn, the Siders of Reshiram threatening her, saying, "Don't move a muscle or we're gonna blow your friend." And Orbweeb didn't listen, and she tried to resist anyway. And I feel like that was the more, adolescent side of her that she had to overcome in that moment from seeing the direct results of her actions, from not accepting the fact that she can't always, do what she wants.
Right.
And she saw the immediate repercussions of what she did. So I think that was, in my opinion, that seemed like the biggest turn in her growth.
I agree. Poor girl's been through a lot.
She has.
And it don't end here.
She has.
The trauma doesn't end now.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you kind of want to know on Orbweeb?
I think that's kind of like her biggest thing, is that her attitude is just totally different now.
Yeah.
And I think that's been like the biggest thing for her. I don't think her morals are necessarily gone, but I think she has had to set them aside for a lot of different situations, and that's starting to take a toll on her.
There was a line you said in the first episode, and then like in episode 20-ish, I think. In the first episode-ish, Orbweeb said, I love everyone and everything. She wants to make sure everyone and everything was safe.
Yeah.
And then in one of the more recent episodes, Orbweeb said verbatim, she said, "I will fucking murder you," to one of the doctors that poisoned the Mointhus. So I think that was really interesting to see, like, the night and day. Because I feel like episode 1, Orbweeb would not say she was going to murder somebody if they didn't listen to her.
No,
so,
she probably would have pleaded, like, try to make a deal or something to try and get to the antidote.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's definitely interesting.
Yeah, things have changed.
Yeah.
100%. All right. Well, who wants to go next?
I kind of want to piggyback off of Orbweeb's to say I feel like Demoinia's growth was almost opposite to Orbweeb's. I think Demoinia started out really scared and hardened, because she'd never really faced a time in her life where she felt like she had community. And so she was just on the run. She wasn't with the party because she cared. She was quick-witted and quick to anger and wanted to survive. And I think over the course of the time that our little characters have spent together, I think she's softened. And in a way that she realized that she can care about other people and that they'll stick around. And I think that that's probably encouraged Demoinia's anger more than anything. That's pushed her to a place of, before it was like, attack anybody that attacks my character, because she, is so strong-willed in the person that she is, and so defensive because of everything that she went through. And now it's kind of shifted to this big defense against the people that have taken care of her. And, without knowing it, saved her from a really horrible situation. And so I feel like Demoinia's gained a lot of emotional intelligence, sense of community. And it's not really leveled her out by any means, I would say, but it's made her
It's made like her will to fight have something more behind it.
yeah, like there's a meaning behind her fight now. It's not just like
it's
a careless,
not just useless fighting.
yeah,
well,
it's
also
not just
before
like
too, it was like Demonia was like, you know, if you're in my way, I'll make you get out of my way. In episode 1, when Demonia didn't really care about anyone, she was full on willing to let O'Flanagan get left behind in the arena.
Yeah.
She said, "Are we gonna leave the Birdman and just go, or what's the plan? 'Cause I want to leave." But now
Yeah.
I feel like if O'Flanagan was trapped or something along those lines, Demonia would be the first one to be like, "No, we're not leaving," and
Right.
start swinging a blade.
yeah,
so
she's
that's-
taken that anger and like wrapped it around all of her friends. There's just this protective cloud around them now.
Yeah,
She's got
You know,
more heart behind it.
yeah,
there's a reason. It's not just a senseless like I just need to get away from where I am. You know, I need everybody to get the hell away from me. It's she's found people to care about.
That's
And
interesting.
Yeah.
I feel like Demonia too, like in the beginning, she wasn't necessarily a fighter. I didn't really see her as a fighter, and especially in like the during the bout with the Avatar of Greed, she didn't really throw many hands against him, and she was more running around him. But especially in the more recent episodes, she kind of after she kind of grew a heart like Tin Man, she started being the one to
Her heart grew
actually
3 sizes.
volunteer herself and be the one who wants to fight in other people's places, especially in the friendly bout against Zekrom in the in the friendly combat. O'Flanagan suggested Demonia. I feel like episode 1 Demonia would have been like, "No, you do it." But
Right.
in that moment, Demonia was like, "Okay, yeah, I think it's a good choice. I will do it." Because Demonia had more of a reason. She wanted to prove herself and her friends were worthy of the title being thrown at them.
Right. It's like she's not as flighty now. She has a reason to stand her ground and fight, and someone to fight for.
Yeah. It's interesting to see how much you guys have grown. Since episode 1. There's been a lot of just personality changes and a lot of trauma that I've given your characters that have
I was
actually
gonna say trauma builds character. I
Yeah,
mean,
trauma builds
exactly
character.
what you expect is happening.
Yeah. Anything else you want to comment on for Demonia?
I think that sums it up pretty well. I don't know if Demonia's made many other. It's like before that, Demonia was confident in herself. She knew the world. She understood the bad that was in it, and I feel like the biggest change that she could make was like changes within about the way she views the people around her.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
she had a very good like hard understanding of the pain in the world and what she had to do to survive, and it just gave her more of a meaning in life to continue to survive. You know.
Demonia is kind of like the definition of the quote that's your family is not the one you're born into, it's the one you choose. And I feel like Demonia just identifies with that entirely.
Embodied
Family's
that.
not just
Yeah.
blood.
Yeah, family's not just blood. So I think that's pretty much, I feel like that's been her biggest character arc, is that just that quote right there.
Yeah,
All right.
I agree.
Corwin, what about you?
Your boy Corwin's come a long
boy.
way from the little scared individual he was starting out. At first, he was timid. He didn't want to talk to people at all. He went on this journey, much like Demonia, he's on the run. He saw this as a way of getting even further away from Eagle's Crest for being framed for murder. So he's like, yeah, that gives me leagues away. So he joined in, not really thinking that he was going to stick around. But the companionship that he found between Orweeb and Demonia kind of like helped cement him into it, and he's kind of adopted different things from each of them. Like overall, Demonia's confidence to go up to anybody and tell them what they're thinking. Corwin's kind of taken that, like, hey, I can tell people what I'm thinking, and there's not a problem with that. And Orweeb in the beginning, the very loving individual. Like, there are good people in the world that I can open up to. I don't need to be sheltered and hold all this to myself. I can kind of express that to special people. Now, as moving on, Corwin did not want to go down a murderous road. He wanted to try and preserve life or not get into confrontation, but the road itself kind of put him in that, and he'd been put into situations where he had to do that, but he only did it to protect the people who were protecting him. Like, he wouldn't go out of his way to try and protect someone random. Like, you have to give him a reason to take on someone else's life, and Demonia and Orbweave have done that for Corwin, where they have stood up for him and have gone above and beyond to make sure nothing happens to him, and he reciprocates that, just like what he does for O'Flanagan when people step out of line. Now, Corwin and O'Flanagan have a constant back and forth bromance that goes on, but
Yeah, that's true.
The overall aspects of O'Flanagan and how O'Flanagan started off as a murderous person and turned into more of that pacifist. Corwin has noticed that, and where Corwin started going down that dark road of like, I can just kill anybody, and he actually took blood of an enemy and tried wiping it on his face and praying to the Great Old One, was kind of more of a lower point for him. Like, he tried to just go down that road to give his deity what they wanted, and Demonia and O'Flanagan kind of showed him like, hey, we don't need to be doing that. Let us help you get out of this. And they pulled him out of that more darker path back towards the path of the light.
It's definitely going to be interesting to see how that plays out too, because when you fought Mort's father, and you guys were in the alleyway shortly after that bout, Corwin suggested the idea of finishing him off, and O'Flanagan negated the thought and said it wasn't in their right, to justify his death. So I'm curious to see how that'll play out if they continue to clash mindsets on who deserves to die and who doesn't. I think that'll be an interesting kind of spiral between the two characters. Yep. It's definitely been, I've noticed since the beginning episodes, Corwin I never really felt like he was timid to talk to another person, but he was definitely timid in the aspect of being in a confrontation. As far as if he had to use his abilities against another person, I feel like he didn't really want to, unless he had to. But then in the most recent episodes, I feel like Corwin was very quick to, muster his newfound magical powers and prepare to use them at a moment's notice, and even kill his opponent if he needed to. As his mentality towards his own abilities has grown since the first episode. He's kind of, gained a sense that if he has to take a life, he will. And I think that's definitely been interesting to see.
Yeah, he has that protective personality type now.
Yeah,
where he wants to protect those close. And him hearing about Mort and his overall backstory and like him being beat kind of resonated with him. So that's why.
Thanks for the 9 months in a row, Tech Gil. that sound always scares me and like just pulls me right out of the immersion. It's like getting my head, like someone grabs my hair and they're like, yank! Look at this.
Look at their Twitch stream.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. Super appreciated, man. Okay, sorry, what were you saying?
Just a protective personality is what he's adopted. He wants to make sure those closest and trying to protect children, especially from an abusive parent, because Corwin's mother was abusive to him. And when he heard about the pot being poured onto his stomach and leaving a scar, that like kind of triggered some things for him. He's like, well, fuck, alright, well, we're taking a kid.
Yeah, and that's also something I feel like Corwin in episode 1 would never have done. If Mort was in that arena, even if he had all the similar claims as he had in that episode, I feel like Corwin would have still been like, look, this kid's not our problem. We need to go. We need to go. Same as Des Moines. I feel like Des Moines said the exact same thing. Like, no, this kid's on his own. We gotta leave.
Yeah.
Well, and like I think the funny thing I find about that is, if I remember right, it was Corwin and O'Flanagan that were really pushing for us to take the kid, and I was the one questioning it.
No, Flanagan didn't want the kid.
Oh, he didn't? Okay.
No, yeah, he was like,
Corwin.
"What are you doing?"
Was it just Corwin?
Yeah, it's just Corwin. Yeah, and Corwin was like, "We'll get you trained in the way of the dagger," and Flanagan was like, "What are you doing right now?" And he's like, "Flanagan's gonna teach you," and he was like, "What are you doing right now?" So that was
He apologized.
Yeah. When I first made Mort too, he was simply made to be a one-stop shop NPC that you guys kind of met on the way out of the village, not a reoccurring character that I was going to have to develop a deeper personality for and kind of go into depth on his motives and morals and et cetera, et cetera.
Well, sometimes you get a kid.
Sometimes you get a kid.
Sometimes they just show up.
And
Just got a kid.
The Scorp just airdropped them into your laps, and now you have a kid.
yeah. God, I wish that's how it worked.
It's also been...
Boom.
What I also want to ask you guys, what locations have you gone to that have been the most impactful for your characters? You've been to not Bane's Rock. You've been to Shakar Village, Sekram's Village. You've been to Pelios. You've been to the Waterfall Citadel. You've been to the starting tavern where that got burned down, and you've been to the one tavern that had the caved-in wall with the butcher that was just torn to shreds. And you had Jat's farm, where you met the werewolf and the missing sheep and all of that. So, if I'm to ask you, which I am, which location do you guys think would have been the most impactful for your characters that might have contributed to a personality shift or morality shift?
I think specifically Zekram's village was big for Demonia. So I think that really solidified her sense of purpose. And I took it that way when we created Bob and banded together. We became a very official group, when everything before that was just us kind of traveling along together, trying to figure this shit out. Like, we have a dragon egg, we're all kind of tied to this for different reasons, yada yada. And that gave us a reason to stick together as a group, and it gave that group purpose. Like, we were attached to something. And I think that, mixed with just the generosity that Demonia received in that village and the willingness to help us, was a big change in her character's emotions.
Yeah. I feel like, too, Demonia, I feel like in the moments leading up to her encounter with the vision of King Kaz that she had encountered with him, I feel like that was also a big shift in her overall. I feel like in that moment, Demonia might have realized that maybe perhaps running is not an option.
Right, yeah.
What about you guys, Corwin and Orweeb?
I'd say the road to Zekram's village, the traveling in between, because a lot of things happened with the even up to the point of where they fought the spiders, where Corwin actually lost complete consciousness and Norman came out and took over his body, and then the several battles going up to that point, all that was huge developing points that led up to us being able to agree to we're gonna stick around, we're gonna devote ourselves to this cause, because of all the things that happened previously.
Yeah. That was,
I would say
that
the
spider
villagers
fight too was the first time the rest of the party actually saw that there was more to this whole thing with Norman than just it being some kind of imaginary friend that's been with you for a while now. They actually kind of, because at that point in time, Corwin was KO'd, and then all of a sudden he just came back up as Norman and continued fighting with a whole different style, as opposed to Corwin's way of fighting. In that moment, Norman Corwin pulled out a dagger and started stabbing into the belly of the spider, which is something Corwin's never really done. He's Eldritch Blast, magic, he doesn't really take out a sword or a dagger and start fighting like that. So that was the first time that everybody got to see that there was more to it than just the imaginary buddy.
Yep.
Or Weeb.
I was gonna say, for Orb-Weeb, probably the Waterfall Citadel, I think, was a big one for her, mostly just because of how many people there were and how much, like, she had to face there. So, like, even just going into the shops and stuff was kind of overwhelming for her. She'd never been to, like, anything than, like, just a very small village. And so being around that many people and seeing, you know, like all the different jobs and, you know, duties that everyone had and how many guards there were, it was very like surreal to her, on top of like the confrontation of having to deal with the avatar of greed and trying to get through the arena and everything. Like that whole thing was just like super overwhelming, and I think kind of showed her that, hey, there's a lot more to this world than you thought there was. So I think that was like the first big like place for her, and then after that I would say Zekrom's village for sure. And kind
Yeah.
of in the same vein of Demoinia's, like it kind of just gave us all a purpose, and
Mhm.
it kind of like actually solidified us as a group. And like everyone else, Orb-Weeb took that very seriously and was like, okay, this is my responsibility now. I've got to take it on, and thankfully I have people that I trust to do that with.
I also kind of feel like in, you know, Pelios, in the memorial graveyard, I feel like could have been also a major moment for Orb-Weeb, because that was the first time, in my opinion, that, you know, you met somebody, you know, the graveyard keep, who related to Orb-Weeb on such a deep level and sympathized to her. I feel like nobody in the campaign has really sympathized to Orb-Weeb's troubles yet, because, you know, people around
It's
you
a hard
have
one
been
to relate to.
Mhm, exactly, and the people around you have been borderline tortured. So Orb-Weeb hasn't really, you know, talked about her own problems and what she's going through on the inside, because I feel like Orb-Weeb just, you know, wouldn't. That was the first time in this campaign that somebody, you know, told Orb-Weeb, they gave the whole speech about how a druid plays a role, and that role is to be a strong oak tree that helps
Right.
the roots of its community grow. And I feel like that also could have been a moment that gave Orb-Weeb some, you know, purpose, an idea of
Yeah,
what she can
absolutely.
do with her life.
Absolutely. I
and
think
similar,
that situation gave Orb-Weeb a lot of the confidence that she has now.
yeah. I feel
Like
like after that point too,
she's more
Orb-Weeb
willing
started
to fight.
using a lot more magic.
Kind
You
of
know,
like just harnessed it a little bit more and took advantage of it more, and kind of understood that it was a gift she was given and to use it for good, and that it was
Mhm.
possible to use it for good.
Yeah. In a similar aspect, I feel like Pelios was probably O'Flanagan's biggest, you know, place, because
I
in
feel like that's where we all
Pelios,
became actual friends.
yeah, that's like where you guys bonded for like the first time. And O'Flanagan, you know, he got the idea that at the end of the day, he can make his tavern Flinny's. Kind of gave him an idea of what he wants to do with his life. But that was
Oh yeah,
also,
taught him to eat different foods at the same time
Mhm.
to get different flavors.
yeah, and that was probably like that arc was probably my favorite so far, which is how much role play was involved and how much, you know, conversation interchange and just you know, talk amongst friends there was really cool to see and hear. But particularly, you know, for a Flanagan, it was, you know, a transition period. You know, he came into Pelios on the run and then was shown there's a life after this that he could obtain. And that was also before he was met with the gruesome reality that everything he thought isn't. And the whole idea of what history was wrong to him. And he's been shown a whole different, you know, path. So that was a huge transitional period for O'Flanagan, in my opinion. With that note, though, we're gonna play that video. So everybody, pull up that YouTube tab that I asked you to pull up earlier. Don't press the play button yet. I'll let you know when to press play. Just let me know when you're all on it.
I am ready.
Ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So go ahead and press the play button, and we'll watch at the same time right now. I mean, I'll start with the current party NPC. His name is O'Flanagan. He's an Arakocra. I have no idea if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I hope I am.
You are.
I am? Sweet. He is a rogue assassin. He kind of hails from the underground. He's very brutish. He's kind of a dick. He prioritizes money and his own goals.
Corwin comes from Eagle Crest, which is one of the southern areas of the world we're playing in. His father was human, his mother was elf. They owned a little shop in Eagle's Crest. His dad was one of the more renowned artificers in the world, so a lot of people would come to that little area. Corwin kind of had a easier time of childhood for the most part until his mother somehow disappeared, and then his dad got super sick, and Corwin got tricked into getting all these abilities to try and save his dying father. And so he got a pack of the Great Old One, who's constantly in his head. But Corwin was never really that great looking of a person, and when he got tricked, it got worse. Corwin is really hard to look at, and when he finally got done with the Great Old One getting into his head and bestowing the champion status upon him, he ran back to his father. His father was dead. He got put on for murder, and the guy ran out of the Eagle Crest. And upon that, they also flogged him as he was running out, and he was actually caught on fire, which then brought upon a large fear of fire that you guys will see later on through this, that Corwin wants nothing to do with fire. Fire freaks him out. He's also scarred. His legs are scorched, his hands and arms trying to pat out the fire, and along with that, his face is atrocious to look at. So he tries to stay out of society because, one, he's never really accepted, and two, now he's marked for murder. Now, that's a little bit of a insight to the life of Corwin.
Demointhus. So Demointhus is a tiefling bard who grew up in... I pulled up my backstory here. So he grew up in a circus family, the Circus Night Ventures. He was forced into the freak show of the circus. So he dealt with a lot of mutilation and abuse while he was with his family. They just put him through a lot. So my character himself, he's missing one of his horns. He's kind of scarred up, a little disfigured, and just kind of scarred up in the face and his arms from general just neglect and abuse. And his family was also, they were really horrible people, and so he fled from them to advance in a better life. Someone said that's hot. I'm like reading the chat as I'm talking.
Honestly, I wouldn't read into the chat too much. They're gonna get in your head.
I know, it was funny.
It's funny.
Yeah, so his parents threatened him if he ever left that he would be brought into their crimes as in what's the word, like an accomplice, and that they would murder him if he ever left for everything that he knew. So he fled for a better life from the circus.
All right,
that is his life now. He is on the run, and he is really good at playing the lute. Learned that on his own time. Oh, and with his fears and kind of his flaws, he's very jumpy and very fighty due to his past, so he's really eager to jump into fights and be protective and be angry. He also has a fear of swimming, just from past things, so he's very jumpy, very flighty, very aggressive.
So I have Orbweeb, a half-elf cleric, who was traveling with her family when she was a little wee baby, and because she was so tiny, she fell off the wagon and they forgot about her. So she kind of grew up in the woods, did not know where she was from, and befriended not necessarily befriended, but the forest goddess Maliki, I think that's how you pronounce it, kind of took her in and showed her how to live and communicate with animals and feed herself. And eventually there was a nearby town where she kind of over time gained the courage to wander into and learn more about like the common language and all that kind of stuff, and how to just kind of be a not necessarily kind of like a person, but because of her background, she's able to kind of hear animals and bugs and just wildlife and nature. And there was I believe, I don't have my backstory in front of me, but I believe it was some sort of entrapment for bugs, and she released them all in this town. And because of that, she had to leave. And sorry, I keep getting text messages.
You're okay.
She had to leave and kind of run off and find her own place to live because she couldn't stay there anymore. So she's just been wandering, trying to find a home and find people that she can trust. She's a little gullible, can't really gauge how much to trust people, not to trust them. And she's very sneaky and really in tune with animals.
So it's interesting to see how much the stream improved.
Yeah, I was
Since-
just thinking that.
Yeah,
Everyone's
since
setups changed and
yeah. Did you guys all finish the video?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. I was running it on my end too, so I had to wait till it was done. But so is there anything you guys kind of heard that you're kind of like, wow, that like is a lot different for me now, or is it all relatively the same?
Does my
Or-
audio sound so much better now?
It's so much better.
It's so much better now.
I had a new headset just a couple days ago.
Yeah.
Oh, like that?
I love it.
When I
love
was
it.
making that video, I was like, damn, it was bad. Holy crap.
So bad.
It was so
I'm so
bad.
sorry you guys had to hear that.
It was so bad. Okay. Well, it's interesting to see how much I was wrong about Flanagan and that little.
Yeah.
As a-
I'm a
like,
dick.
he's kind of a dick, and he's all about money and his own
Yeah.
goals, and yeah, it's a lot different now.
my bed
Um,
was over there. I realized
Yeah.
that.
I was gonna
Yeah.
say,
I was like,
yeah,
I'm in a
you're
different, like,
I
I'm
was
in
in a
my
whole
bedroom
different
now.
house.
instead of
I
my
know,
room.
yeah.
Yeah, I feel like
Weird.
I feel like we all like look a little bit different too.
I look a lot different, yeah.
I feel like we all look healthier compared
I
to.
think I look the same.
That's just
You think
camera
you look the
quality,
same?
bro.
Is it camera quality? Maybe I'm just being optimistic, but
I think part of it's camera quality. I also think some of us have done better for themselves.
Yeah, I think so.
all right. Well, okay. Well, that
and all
is
of
the
your
end.
hair
of-
got longer. I gotta say that.
all of our hair
Yeah.
is longer, I think.
I just, I think besides me, especially you guys, you two.
Yeah, I think in the video
That's
my hair was
quiet.
like right here. I think.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
was,
That's like-
right
I
about.
was like, dang, it's
It's like 5 inches, I think.
One
Yeah.
thing I noticed was the vape that Annika was hitting. I was like,
I-
I haven't seen one of those in a while.
it was a flume, and it wasn't even mint.
Which
it
is
wasn't
funny because we're still hitting flumes to this day,
Wow.
1 year later.
flume sponsor me,
Everything.
please. I buy soap. Oh my god.
It's
I'll-
crazy
I'll
to
sell my
think too,
soul.
like
Way
how
too
much
many of these.
changed in 1 year. Where we were then, where we are now.
Yeah,
So
Yep.
much has
a
changed
hell of
inside
lot
just
has
a year.
changed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love how vague I left it for Orb Weeb, so she's still kind of the same.
Yeah.
Just with a lot more story behind her now.
Yeah. I wanted to make sure to include that for this little thing, see how much our mindsets might have changed or how much just we as people changed. Looks,
Yeah.
personality, lives, since then. Kind of puts it into like a, into an idea of, life, I guess.
Yeah.
But
I feel like our characters too start to change almost a little bit subconsciously as we change as people.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like we find like new goals and purpose for our characters. It's like our morals shift and we go through the year, like
100%. 100%.
yeah.
Okay.
Something that has changed as far as Corwin, like he had a terrible fear of fire, and now he's kind of using his fear and pushing it out onto other people. Like
he
he
has a
will,
mild fear.
yeah. He's still terrified. He like tried to keep it away from him, So like when he like controls flame, he wants to make sure one, it doesn't come back to him. So like I'm gonna push that over to you guys 'cause I don't want it.
Yeah. It makes me happy to see that. All right, with that, we'll conclude this whole recap and discussion, deep dive on our characters, and we can jump
Next year. We'll go over it again.
Yeah, well, I'll
And
bring up
we're
the
there.
original video, so don't watch it.
Can't
That
wait
way
to
you
do it
kind of forget
again.
about it. And well, next year we'll bring that video back up and we'll do another deep dive, and we'll be like,
Oh my
We'll be like,
God,
how
what
much
if,
has
like,
changed?
some of our characters are dead in a year?
could be, dude, could be. He'd be like,
We're like,
so
oh.
Flanagan's not around anymore, but McDonald is, and McDonald, blah 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 blah.
We
I'm
hate that
naming-
guy.
I am naming my next
McDonald.
character Ronald McDonald.
Ronald McDonald.
But I'm
I
just gonna
shouldn't have
call
said
him
that.
Mac.
Oh my god. All right. So before we get into episode 34-ish, I need to mention what retcon that I'm going with. In a previous episode I mentioned Bartholomew was 12. But since then I have learned about how Dragonborn age works, and they live to be about the age of 30, and then they die. Mentally at 12 years old, they're like 26, in human years. So
Yeah.
the retcon now is that he's actually 4 years old to adjust to his actual personality that I designed for him and everything he's done and said to this point. So he was born 4 years ago. Mentally, he's probably about 8 or 9 years old. As far as an aspect of just human years.
He's already got a kill under his belt.
He has a
Oh no, not kill. No, he threw the. He didn't kill it.
Yeah.
He threw the knife into it. That's right.
All right, so now we'll do a little bit of a recap to kind of refresh everything that's happened so far in the campaign, and then we'll jump into it. You all started your journey from a small bar near the Waterfall Citadel. Since then, you've met many people and conquered many foes and made new friends. You fought the Avatar of Greed and walked away alive. You faced man-eating goblins and won. You raised your swords against the Dragonborn of Reshiram and won. You saved Bahamut, Zekrom, Steve, Matthew, and Mort. You helped turn the tides in the Battle of Dragonborns, joined the Order of the Dragon, defeated Mort's abusive father, and are on your way to Bane's Rock. The Necronomicon was announced to have been stolen from the Dry Tower during the meeting you all attended at Zekrom's village. Zekrom revealed Vecna was a member of the Order of the Dragon long ago until he was banished for practicing dark magic. You've learned that the generals of the Royal Army are dubbed as the Seven Deadly Sins, the most powerful group in the land. You join the Order of the Dragon, a collection of factions contributing to a higher purpose, preservation of Urunsal and his people. A while back, you guys were chased through the Waterfall Citadel, where one of your chasers revealed that they were a part of a group called the Cult of Vecna. During episode 1, you all witnessed a man in full black armor, similar to the man O'Reilly mentioned at the tavern recently. O'Reilly revealed that the Royal Army is collecting 3 times the taxes, gathering 10 times the forces, and leaders of the Royal Army, including the Royal Army, including the Black Armored Man and O'Malley. Sorry, I'm getting lost here.
Yeah, that's right.
So the Royal Army is collecting 3 times the taxes and gathering 10 times the forces. They're preparing for something big. In the Royal Army, they have commanders that supersede or supervise the entire operation. O'Malley and the Black Armored Man. O'Malley being the commander of the army who only answers to the king. You've met Zekrom, son of Arceus and brother of Reshiram. Reshiram, according to Flanagan. Wait, oh my god. You've met Zekrom, son of Arceus and brother of Reshiram. Reshiram, according to Flanagan, is a sympathizer to Arceus and history's recordings of his tyrant and racial supremacy rule of the land. The very same history Zekrom claims was falsely written by the king. One village ago, you guys witnessed the aftermath of a gruesome murder of a butcher. The wall caved in and the butcher torn to shreds by some kind of claw and or talon. You're not sure who it could have been, and it didn't look further into it before leaving. There are 2 large factions in the Order of the Dragon. And you are aware within the Order there is a faction called the Knights of Justice. who Zekrom told you will have some guards posted at Eagle's Crest for your protection upon arrival. Most recently, in your travels, Orbweeb prayed with Mort for Maliki to bless him, Corwin contacted Zachariah about his ailment, Demonia learned some new casting techniques with her lute, and Flynn started training Mort in the way of the dagger. Then you fought the Displacer Beast. Mort landed his first ever attack against the creature by throwing his dagger into one of its tentacle tails and disabling its tentacle. His first step into the way of the dagger and being a full-fledged member of Bob. Now, you're preparing for Baden's Rock, a village with rumors of missing children, run by its lord, Baden, and famous for its ale.